Jernigan, your tour guide into discoveries, and we are coming to you live from the heart of America to around the globe. Let's journey together into the realms of the unknown to the known in search of enlightenment, knowledge, and truth. And actually, I am here in the heart of America, and we are live, and we're heard on today on Project Camelot TV, and this is live. And we're in Google Hangouts and YouTube, and my guest today is Kerry Cassidy, and we are just have a whole bunch of things to talk about today, and it's been real fun. I'm really glad that you guys hung in there until we got ready to go. We apologize for being behind schedule. We have some technical stuff, and some of it is user. I'll resemble that remark, and some of it is just getting used to this new format. So I want to welcome each and every one of you to Journeys with Rebecca radio and TV show. And also I want to take this time now to welcome Kerry Cassidy to the show. Kerry, hello, my dear.
Hi there. Sorry, I just lost my voice. Okay. It's been a wild ride. We're trying at the moment to launch the Camelot TV network with at least about, I think, something like 18, 19 hosts. And so this is just an experiment, really. And today is our first show with Rebecca and myself. And we're just going to kind of talk about that and a bunch of other things that are going on. I've got the logo up here for the new TV network that we're playing with. This as being our logo. And everything, as I say, is still experimental, so we haven't committed to it completely, but I think that this is a good possibility for a logo. And at any rate, that's what's happening. So, hi, everyone.
What a journey actually just getting to get the show on the air, is it not? I'll tell you what. Well, this has been lots of fun. I will tell you, as much of a challenge as this has been, Kerry, and we've got some wonderful people in the background. I want to take time to say thank you to the people in the background that have been so very patient, and they also have had a learning curve with all of this to figure out how we could bring a live broadcast as well as a video broadcast to everyone in different locations and different venues. And so a big thanks goes to all those behind the scenes, and all the training and everything that we've had. I think has really been beneficial to have all these people on board. And of course, we're hopefully going to be adding some more production and tech people as well along the way, and we're going to get into that in just a few minutes. But I kind of wanted to share a little bit of background information with everyone about Journeys with Rebecca, as well as how I was introduced to Kerry Cassidy, and how this is really truly a very small world that we live in. And I started my original radio show in 2002, Journeys with Rebecca. It's still the same one. Started out with guests, and in those days, internet radio was few and far between. I had to do mostly pre-recorded shows because there was no such thing as live radio in those days on the internet. And then eventually it moved into live radio. I was broadcasting through terrestrial as well as satellite. I podcasted. I did pre-recorded shows as well still, and I did an awful lot of different venues in order to get the show out. I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of guests in the years that I've been doing the show, sometimes up to 3 a week, depending on what year it was and what was going on. And I've been very blessed with some of the people that I've met and some of the great minds that have shared space with me, and I was fortunate enough to share space with them. I look at the world from basically from the unseen portion of it. I have always been able to see and communicate with what some people would call spirits. You can call them entities. I've had numerous experiences and contact from the time I was 4 years old. That's my first memory of it. I receive visions all the time. I receive information. I have a group of guides that I work with called the Elohim. I've been working with them since I've been 4, and they're quite extraordinary, and I was fortunate enough through people that were listening to the show. I want to get back in and kind of draw how I was introduced to Carrie through some of the people. Had an audience member actually that introduced Carrie and I together. We were on a phone call together, and then after that, Carrie and I continued communication, and we have stayed in touch. I think that was back in, what, 2008? You were early on in Project Camelot, Carrie, if I remember right.
Well, actually, that would be 2 years into operation. We started in 2006, in April of 2006 officially, although I'd actually started on my own in, as it happens, late November of 2005, believe it or not, going around to UFO conferences and making documentary interviews with speakers. So that was the just genesis of Camelot, but close enough. 2008. And
it could have been earlier. I know it wasn't later than that. It could have even have been 2007, is what I was thinking. It's 2007, 2008. It's when we first kind of started communicating and really getting to know each other at that point.
Cool. So continue your story.
Well, and then, so, through the years of knowing you, Carrie, and we, like I said, we did some seminars, online seminars together. There was some events that we kind of I guess, hosted together, and then you hosted some, and at that point I had my own radio station, and was helping broadcast some of the events that you were putting on in the early days, and those were through the internet, and those weren't the ones that you would, these were events that were just all online events. And then you invited me to go to Egypt. That trip, I will tell you, was really earmarked a lot of different things that happened, events that happened, and it kind of gave me an insight as to how things happened for me, all the visions, and how those pieces of information from the years forward just kind of come into play in the moment that I was there. It was an extraordinary time, and I think we did some pretty good work while we were there. All of us, the whole group, did some pretty good work while we were there. We had a wonderful guide. I still remember him. He was a wonderful man. I took a year off. I have to tell people that from 2014 through until just now, back in June or July of 2014, I left the radio waves for about a year, taking care of my own self. I also had, I don't know, I guess you would call it some major epiphanies, and I've put together a lot of different pieces of information, which brings me to some of the other things. If you go to my website, that's journeyswithrebecca.com, there's a page in there that talks about Rebecca, and it kind of shows you all the things that I've done for the past 35 years. And it's quite wide and varied, and it certainly, even though you put things in print, it still doesn't always give you everything that I've actually done. And but my take on things is from the unseen. So what I love about the people that have come onto the show is that they will bring that concrete information forward that solidifies whatever it is visually, or the bit within the visions, within the metaphysical kind of aspect of how I operate, and they bring it into this reality, and it makes it an extraordinary, I just feel blessed, and it's extraordinary, it really is. So these are some of the things that I also go forward and teach people, other people, is because I believe truly, just as you've spoken about it as well, Carrie, I truly believe that we all have the abilities. It's just a matter of tuning into them, developing them, understanding them, and I think that's the biggest key, is learning how to understand what it is that you are experiencing or witnessing or viewing in your own world. We're all so unique, but we also share a lot of similarities, and so that's some of the classes that are coming up that I am teaching about. One of them is about being an empath, and it's not exactly what people think it is. Empathic, a lot of people just mistake it as just somebody who picks up on the emotions of others. Well, that's the basis of it, but there's more to it than that. I also get into what I call timeline integration. Again, those are listed, and I don't want to take up too much more time on that today. All that information is listed on my website. But I'm looking forward to the continued growth here on Project Camelot TV and all the different hosts, and I'm looking forward to maybe having some of them on this show, but I've got some really great guests lined up that will be bringing their area of expertise to the table, and hopefully we'll have some open discussions, and we'll have some chats, and we're hoping to develop, if I'm not mistaken, Carrie, we're hoping to develop maybe phone calls coming in, but if nothing else, there will be chat. I'm sure there's a chat box open somewhere, isn't there? Unfortunately, I have lost part of my thing here with this, as far as being able to see what everybody else is seeing. I lost that window, so all I have is this window. So
okay, yeah, I mean, thank you, Rebecca. I think we have kind of a little glitch going on because we've got my name under your picture, and that wasn't intended.
Well, yeah, you're not Carrie. I'm not Carrie.
Yeah, so
Carrie.
I actually don't know how that happened.
I don't either.
It's hard to say. And I know everyone's seen my kitchen, right? So this is kind of wild. But anyway, just want to say hi, and that we are trying to work out the kinks in using Google Hangouts. It's a mystery of mysteries, because every time you use it, something new arises. And this is what's going on right now. So I'm sorry to say, but when we put this out on my main channel, we will edit that out, so you're not having to broadcast with my name under. I'm not that much of an egotist.
Well, I absolutely love it. I think it's great. I'll be somebody else today. That's different.
I really don't know what's going on here, and I tried to remove it. It's not letting me do it. So
it's all good, really. It is.
It is actually Mercury retrograde, right? So.
Oh, there you go. No wonder we're having a few technical issues on these ends, right?
A few. That might be like sort of an understatement of the century. So. Anyway, we've got 2 show producers, let me say, that are coming on board with us, that are actually letting us or helping us and going to be broadcasting us in the future. At this moment, this is a hands-on effort on our part, right? So obviously it's going to have those glitches. But once our producers come on board and start doing stuff for us, it will be much easier.
Yeah. Agreed. It will be. And so we decided we were just going to kind of flub through this show and kind of share with everybody exactly what's been going on. I mean, we were even late getting started, and I lost my windows, literally. I mean, they were there, and then all of a sudden they went away. Carrie goes, "Can you see this?" I was like, "No, there's nothing left. It's gone." And then, of course, we didn't have time to get back to it. So we're all just kind of propping each other up today, I think, is a good way of saying that.
Yeah, and I just can't wait till my 7 o'clock tonight show, just to continue the saga. Actually, I have been broadcasting on Google Hangouts now for about 3-4 months, but with, as they say, varied success. So, hopefully having 2 show producers using a third-party software, rather than do an advertisement for those third-party softwares, I'll just say a third-party software, will make it easier for things to go as planned, as opposed to kind of hit and miss, which is what we're dealing with right now. So anyway, that's what's going on. So Rebecca, in terms of just what's going on out there in the mainstream and in the world around us, do you want to share anything that you've observed that you think might be particularly interesting for our viewers?
Well, Carrie, I talk a lot about energetics because that's kind of the world that I live in. Is as a sensitive. I sense things, and I have to take those pieces of information, however sensory way it comes in, and I have to kind of decipher it and determine, what that means or what it doesn't mean. And energetically speaking, it's amped up out there, and you can tell if anybody watches. I mean, even mainstream media, but Facebook, for example. The stories are getting more and more bizarre, and the behavior of humans are becoming more and more bizarre and strange. And I mean, when you think that you've seen it all, you have not seen anything. It just keeps getting more bizarre. So when you stop and take a look at that, when you take a look at what is the driving pieces of mechanisms that's making these people behave and do as they are doing. And I've been on your show, and we've talked about this before as well, and I've talked about it on my show. I talked about it last night when I was on JP's show, which is there is a war going on out there, and the war is for our own humanity. And it's about the choices that you make. It's about how you view the world and what's your intention, and how do you want to, what kind of a person do you want to be in this world, and how would you like the world to look to you? They say you create your own reality, and in some ways you do. And of course, we've got other people that are in our lives, and they help create that reality around us as well. So, it's when we look at the behavior of people. I'm going to kind of get back to that point of the energetics. When we look at the behavior of people, we have to understand that there's not a whole lot of naturalism, if you will, left in the world. I mean, our skies are chemtrailed, our waters are our drinking waters are completely chemicaled. They've done that with our food sources. Without the pesticides and the GMOs, we would have actually pretty good food sources. It goes on to the media, even the energetics behind the media. You've got your religious and political venues as well that have, putting their stuff out. So it's just it's a constant state of being unnatural. It's unnatural. The energetics are unnatural. People are being triggered when you see repetitive acts, 2 or 3 acts in a row of the same kind of bizarre thing that happened on one end of the world or one end of the United States and the other, and you're seeing them as supposedly random acts. Well, this is the energetics. They are affecting people. And one of the things that I really, really, really try to do is I try to look at what are the energies coming in. It goes beyond just astrologically, but although that is a huge important part, I'm not an astrologer myself, but I do believe that the energetics of the solar system do influence all other bodies out there, including ours, that of Earth. So
okay,
when we're go ahead.
Actually, sorry to interrupt here, but let's just say what is going on astrologically that we can talk about for people, that might be useful for those that are interested in this aspect of things, and then we can talk about other aspects as well.
Sure. Well, I'm not an astrologer, but I can tell you is that we just had an eclipse, or there is an eclipse today, depending on where you're at in the world. So that has a huge impact. The eclipse, you said that Mercury was retrograde. There's also some
solar or lunar eclipse.
I believe it was a solar. You know what? I don't know. I don't remember.
Wondered.
Well, I've been so wrapped up with the numerous guests and everything else that I don't really remember what she said, but there was an eclipse, and I know somebody's going to write me and tell me about that here in just a second.
Okay.
I just love when people say, that's not what that was. I love it. Need all the help I can get.
Well,
But
we will have, there is a Q&A that should be associated with this conversation. That would be great to get people's feedback. I'm actually going to it right now on another.
Oh, good, because I can't reach it from here.
Yeah, no
My
problem.
Windows.
No, I'm just looking for any of our educated listeners.
I have one. Solar. What? We had a solar now, and then we will be going into another lunar before the end of the year.
Oh, all right. Okay.
See, I told you I got peeps out there. Save me.
About it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, these eclipses are extremely important because the effects of these are far-reaching, and it also depends on the planetary configurations during whether it doesn't matter if it's solar or lunar. Those eclipses accentuate different things, and of course it can bring out the best and the worst of people, and the point is to understand what that is so that you can take a look at your own world and make sure that you just don't get crazy with it. And I was advised that there was a solar, and then there wait a minute, let me look at it again. I probably read that wrong. Yep. We just had the solar, and there is going to be a lunar eclipse, and those both happen in this month. We've already had the solar. The lunar is coming at the end of the month. Maybe it's around the 29th.
Well, maybe that's why we're having all the doom and gloomers out there.
Yeah, a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah, because we're getting predictions about the end of September, like
yes.
Crazy, and I haven't gotten anything about that. Certainly glitches and weird things going on. There are some good things happening also that I've heard about lately. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the other side of this. The other side of this is that you have to understand is that if you've got one side, you have to have something equal and opposite on the other end of it. So, you know, it's the doom and gloomers. If that's the only thing that they're looking at, then they're not looking at the other side of it. And there's always the other side of it. Always the other side of it. Yeah,
for sure. So I think it's good to balance things. I don't know. A person that I know in Britain is talking right now about the head of the Labour Party just changed, and that the new guy is actually somebody that could create some change in Britain, which is completely radical and unusual. So, anyway, that's a piece of good news from what I understand.
Yep. And you know, I don't know, have you been, and that's the question I was going to ask you. I have not had anybody come forward that has backed up this September doom and gloom thing, other than just mainstream media stuff. And so I didn't know, and I think you answered that by saying you hadn't heard of anything on this September doom and gloom, you know, predictions that something terrible was going to go on.
Actually, I've heard of a lot. I heard of a lot, but I personally am not getting anything.
Oh, personally, yes. Same here. I'm like, well, not anything more extraordinary than any other time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, not anything more extraordinary. Well, okay, so now I lost my train of thought. I was in somewhere, now I've lost my whole train of thought where I was going. I just love doing that.
We can relocate you very quickly. No. I mean, we're always time traveling, so maybe you went somewhere and came back and stuff like that. So it's all good. Anyway, is there anything else going on in this current, literally we're in September, we're talking about a lunar eclipse, I guess, going on at the end of the month when we have a full moon. Somebody is typing that in the chat. These things are all going to affect people's psychology, their emotional well-being, the way they're feeling about the world and themselves, relationships, dare I say that word?
Yeah, there you go. Well, relationships come in all shapes and sizes.
For sure. So maybe also in terms of the past year, Rebecca, this is September, right, of 2015. We're going to very quickly be in 2016. And that's supposed to be a bell ringer year for things going on in terms of Earth changes. Have you heard that?
I have. I have heard. I have heard that well, first of all, they've already predicted the El Nino stuff, and that it was supposed to be worse than the one that they had in 2009, I think it was, or whenever it is. They've already predicted that, and that's mainstream stuff. But from other people, I've heard that, and I will call them alternative media people that have written books or whatever. They're part of the alternative world. They have talked about especially droughts and earthquakes, and we have seen a kind of a surge of all that, and it really is not about being freaked out over it. It's about, again, getting back into that energy thing. If something doesn't feel right, and if something tells you to get up and move, then that's what you need to do, is get up and move, whatever that means to you. It's not giving yourself...
I wrote an article about that not long ago, and I'm trying to remember what it was, the title of it. But regardless, actually, it was to a friend, and I'm going to publish it. In the end, it's kind of like, are you running to something or away from something else? And you might think you're running to something, and you might be ending up going somewhere you didn't want to go.
Right.
So I was just cautioning that this is a kind of time when sometimes thinking you're going in one direction is not actually solving the problem. Staying where you are might be better for evaluating where things are at and seeing the big picture a little more clearly. So I would just say that it's not set in stone one way or the other, and you do need to listen to your inner self tell you what is the way to go. But it's one of those kind of like, is up, down, or down, up. And people, when you panic, you tend to just, take off in some direction. It might not actually serve you in the end.
And that's really pretty much what I was talking about when people are making choices. You don't make choices based out of fear or frustration or anger, or you have to really be clear. And that's one of the things that I was going, that's one of the things that I think is the most important thing, is that you really understand yourself, and you have to understand yourself in order to understand whether or not you're reacting out of fear or you're reacting out of panic. So the statement that I made about if you feel like you need to get up and leave, then you need to get up and leave, as long as you're not doing those things in a choice that's based out of an emotional state of mind, state of being. And I think it's really past time for people to get clear, I guess is a good way of saying it, but they also have to get strong within themselves. They have to learn about what makes them tick. I told you when I got on the air today, I said, every time I've been on air, I said I get nervous. I said, I've been doing this for years. I was on TV, and every time I'd be on TV, I'd be nervous. I did this 2 or 3 times a week, and I would still have the butterflies. And I told you, I said, I think the reason why I do that is it keeps me, first of all, from being complacent, and it also gives me an air of excitement about doing what it is that I'm doing. And so
yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with that. Actors, of course, know that when you're going on stage, you want to keep things fresh and alive, and there are plenty of actors that have constant sort of jitters or whatever you want to say before a show. I tend to get kind of hyper and hyper alert in every way. Everything's firing all at once. It's always like that. And my cat also responds.
I heard your cat, yes.
Also, I was going somewhere, but yeah, so I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't either. I don't, Gary. I think it's a good thing. I think it's And because it is, there's a heightened sense of awareness. You have a heightened, everything is, sitting at the surface. And that's an interesting point. And if more people could do that more frequently, not necessarily get themselves all hyped up, but sit at the surface where they can sense things instead of leaving them down in, it would be helpful for them. And teaching them how not to take on other people's stuff is also extremely helpful as well. You want to take on everyone else's junk because it doesn't belong to you. We all have our own baggage to carry around, right? Don't need somebody else's.
Absolutely. In terms of actually other things that are going on, though, Rebecca, do you want to talk about anything? You're a person who is like me. You do dream the future. You do get information in dreams, etc. I'm always interested, actually people don't know this, but we've had a relationship offline talking about these kinds of things a lot between us. And I'm always interested to hear about your particular sort of dreaming going on. Any dreams that are interesting that might give insight into what you see going on in the future?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've had a series of, there are a series of dreams, and that's how my dreams come in. I just want to share this with people so they understand. Whatever the topic is that is being presented to me, it comes in a series of anywhere from 3 to 9 different segments. So it'll be 3 nights in a row, or 6 nights in a row, or 9 nights in a row, and then I'll get a kind of a reprieve, a respite, if you will, and then a couple of days will go by, and then I'll start another dream sequence of something entirely different. So it's kind of an interesting enigma to me, because I'm like, wow, that's just very bizarre that that's how I do that, because I didn't used to. But here's my latest. It started out as a sequence of working with what we would call extraterrestrials. And I know I was underground. And I was working in an underground tunnel. It was a big room. And was working on, they were trying to teach me metallurgy. And I was having to learn about how to take metals and put them together and form things out of them.
Oh, wow.
So, but here's the most interesting part of that, is that, first of all, there were beings from all over. It looked like Babylon 5 down there, seriously. I mean, there was just a million different ones. Anyway, so the first thing that I tried to make was a sword. They had me make a sword, an old-fashioned sword. And I got done with it, and I looked at the blade, and I was like, well, this will never work. It's too thick. I can't sharpen it. And it's not smooth. So we worked on it again. So the next thing I made was a shield.
That's great.
Now, the shield was very interesting because the shield was pretty intricate. It was shaped kind of like a somewhat of a triangle, right? It wasn't round, it was kind of a triangle shape. But then I made some more pieces that I put on to the shield that created an equal arm cross. And I remember thinking about that, and I was like, well, that looks a lot like the Knights Templar thing here. That's what it felt like, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so then I got done with the shield, and I hung it up. And I turned around and I looked at the guy, the one that I seemed to be interacting with the most. By the way, he was very, very tall gray. Very tall gray. Matter of fact, one of the first ones I had seen like that. And I said, okay, so I'm going to leave this here. Is there anything else? And he said, no, not for right now. And so the dreams quit for a while. Then they came back again. Now, this has just been recently, within the last, few weeks. So then the dreams came back, and I'm back down in that tunnel again with a room. I'm underground. I hesitate to use the word base, but that's just exactly what it feels like. And I can tell you is I am in an underground base in the United States. That's where it's at. And in this one, the same tall gray being came forward, and he went again. These are a series of 3. These were 3 nights, so I'm kind of wrapping them all together. So this particular series was taking me through these tunnels and showing me where they lead to, where they go up, and how you can be in some of these buildings and tell how to get underground into these bases. From a hospital was one of them. It went up into a hospital, and I got the feeling that it was a military hospital.
Right.
And that was what that sequence of dreams was. So I always look at these things, Carrie, and kind of wonder, and what am I supposed to do with this information? What's the point behind the metallurgy? But it's significant. The Knights Templar is significant.
Oh, yeah.
The Tall Gray is significant.
Mm-hmm.
These are not just random dreams because they come in a series. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, I can say that's fascinating to have a dream about a Knights Templar kind of creating a shield and a sword. You know, I'm not sure why you're dreaming that, but it may be you'll interpret it as time goes on. Yeah.
Yeah, because it all took place in the underground facility. I was still in the same place where I was making the sword and the shield was where I went back to when I got the tour, and they took me out of that area. Make sense?
Well, yeah. I'm wondering if you're seeing yourself, you know, in relation to a group that's involved in the underground base, that it is the Templars. You're telling yourself that, you know, by the symbolic gestures, creating this shield, etc. It may also be, just as off the top of my head now, okay. You know, a new Knights Templar, a new wave of the Templars that is maybe harking back to the original intent of the Templars. I know that there is a push. I know a number of individuals who talk about wanting to go back to those good ideals that they really were about before they became taken over by the dark side, so to speak.
So I don't think you're too far off base with that. So let me also share some of the feelings, because I was when I looked around the room and seen all the different beings, they were all working together, and I thought, well, now how neat is this? All these different beings from different planets, and they're all working towards this common goal, which is this metallurgy. We were all working at it, right? And it was camaraderie, and there was a real nice silence. It wasn't, it was peaceful. It was actually very peaceful, and you would think, you know, working and pounding and, you know, the heat and melting and all that, it would be really noisy, but it wasn't. It was extremely peaceful, and I thought, well, this is just very kind of strange. But it felt like, as you were saying, like maybe it was maybe there was an imbuing of a sense of something that I had lost, or humanity has lost, which is that sense of getting along and accepting each other, and like the ideals like you were talking about. So it could have been something like that.
Well, the notion that a new type of Templar is taking over or trying to come to the fore in society, and that the original Knights Templars had ideas of honor and so on that have been left behind, and so it sounds like something new is being forged in an underground setting, or an underground, even symbolically just underground, you know, moving from underground to above ground. And anyway, you know, that's a very loose interpretation of what you're talking about, and I don't. It just it seems to coincide with some of the thoughts that society is changing. We are moving into 4D, fully into 4D at this time. some of us are thinking in terms of 5D and beyond, and our minds and our souls and our beingness. I was talking to someone else about that recently, someone who was very concerned about ascension and how what they think, there's some people out there who think ascension is going to happen on one day. And I was just saying, you know, it's not all on one day.
No, if it should be that easy.
No, but, you know, it's all right. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. Maybe metaphorically it's one day, but
Right.
not literally.
Yeah.
So there are a few people kind of getting nervous about stuff like that, and I just think getting into a 5D and beyond state of mind, tapping into your higher self, all of this is, you could say, transitioning, even sort of learning the ropes so you can, you know, your body, your light body will follow eventually and fully be somewhere else. These are choices that we have, I think, going forward, and I wouldn't get so hung up on like a deadline. I think that's really the wrong way of looking at it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I don't think it's, and I think we each arrive when we're supposed to arrive.
There you go.
And I think it's a process. I truly do. I think we're all in the process. And so let me share with you, as long as you're talking about ascension and 4D and all of that, it might help some of the people out there that are listening. During the broadcast last night, I was sharing some experiences that I have on a daily basis, and they are things like, well, I'll give you that. This is funny. It's a funny story, but it's true, and it happened just a couple of days ago. I was rinsing dishes to get ready to put them in the dishwasher. Okay, a very benign, everyday thing. And the dishwasher was closed because I wasn't loading it, and I had a pan in my hand, and I had set a coffee cup up there, and I had hit the handle of that coffee cup just perfectly at that pressure point with this pan, and it flew off. So, you know, just broke the whole handle right off. Just clean break, super clean. Well, I kind of, at first it was tracking, and I call that tracking because it is that slow motion frame by frame thing. So I knew I was watching something kind of strange, because those are usually those moments in which time is warping or doing something odd, right? Because it's frame by frame by frame, and then all of a sudden I didn't see it. And I thought, okay, so I finished rinsing the dishes and all that stuff, and I go to look for this piece because we have a dog and a cat here, and I don't want them stepping on broken glass, or myself or anyone else. So I went looking for this handle, and I couldn't find it anywhere. It wasn't on the cupboard, it wasn't on the floor, it wasn't in the sink, it wasn't anywhere. Couldn't find it. I tore stuff apart. So open up the dishwasher, and there's that handle. So now how did it get from outside the dishwasher to inside the dishwasher without me opening it up is the question. So those are kind of those weird moments in time, that stuff that actually happens. So you kind of go, okay. To me, it's an indication that we've moved into, or I have, or I'm sensing, or something energetically is changing around us, and it's about that becomes more the normal than opening up the dishwasher and physically putting stuff in there. I don't know, right? I mean, it's...
Absolutely. Well, I mean, maybe it was a sleight of hand on your part. No, just kidding.
Maybe I was a magician, didn't know it.
But there is weird things going on, and I think people are experiencing anomalous things. People are certainly sending me information as I get, you know, Camelot gets inundated by this kind of thing. So I think all of us, when you move to 4D and you're fully there, and the Earth really is, I would say, for all intents and purposes by now, fully there, it means whatever you think manifests instantly. It's that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It also has to do with time is morphing. So 1 minute it goes really fast. The next minute it goes really, really slow. It's not like an even pace. That's my perception of it, at any rate.
Well, there's been days, and just what you were talking about, there's been days, and I know that other people are experiencing it, but I'm just going to voice it here so people understand that we're all having experiences. Um, where I sat down at my computer, it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and I got up and it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I have no idea what I did. Nothing. I mean, it was like that fast, right?
My life. No, just kidding.
Yeah, and then there's other days. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's 8:05 in the morning. It's 8:07 in the morning. It's 8:08. It just seems like the day becomes 4 or 5 days long. And you kind of, and this is what becomes very disconcerting for people, because a lot of people don't have the mechanisms to, they think there's something they need to do, and it's not. It's more about just understanding this is the nature of it. This, you go with the flow and just don't stress when you lose 10 hours.
Yeah.
And if you get really bored waiting for the day to pass, read a book. I don't know. You know, there's just things that you kind of have to adapt, because it is about the changing times. So let me also give you just a couple other things, because there's some people out there that this really may relate to. I see colors all the time now, and when I say colors, they look like little clouds. They come through and they got a little color associated with them, and they just seem to hang there. And they, you know, I pay attention to the colors. I pay attention to how it feels. It doesn't feel like it's a thought intelligence trying to communicate with me. It feels more like an energetic anomaly, and it shows up and then it just kind of dissipates, and that happens all the time. Or the other thing is that you'll go to, like, put your hand on a wall, and all of a sudden that wall isn't there where you think it should be, or it just feels soft and spongy to you, or as you're trying to touch it, it seems like it comes out. You know, that's a sign of this whole change within everything else that's going on. It's another anomaly. It's the things that science can't explain, but it's the world in which you exist in, and you just kind of pay attention to those things. And the favorite thing of mine, however, is the 1 minute I'm in one timeline and the next minute I'm in another timeline. I stood outside a few days ago, and I felt like I had went around in a circle, and I was looking at the same direction that I did before. I felt like I went around in a circle, but I can tell you I was standing in a different time space. I know I was. Even though it didn't look any different, it felt different. And I didn't physically turn in a circle, but that's what it felt like. So those are some of the anomalies.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I have people writing to me saying they are having health issues and very weird things going on with their health, right? And I was just writing back to them saying, you know, anything goes right now. And my Cameron interview, for example, I just did an interview with it's a second interview with Cameron Faley, who is a fascinating guy whose family is deeply involved in the financial sector of the world. He worked for City of London for many years, and also with high technology and so on. He's an expert in that area as well as a trained physicist and also a religious scholar. So if you haven't seen that interview, I do recommend it. He's talking about the war within the Illuminati, coming in Planet X during 2016, and that's still open for debate, let me tell you, but nonetheless. And he was talking about things that are going on that are changing. In other words, he says that the funding is now gone for the chemtrails, so we're going to see less and less of those. And indeed, if you've been watching the skies, I have, just lately, we're not seeing chemtrails as much in Southern California. And he didn't say it was going to cease completely, but he really did say that the funding has been taken away, at least from whatever sector was funding it initially. And other people are reporting that as well. there is a lot going on that's affecting people's health. He said he thought women were going to be directly affected by the earth, the energies in the earth as time goes on, especially in the next year or two, that our bodies reflect the earth and the changes in the earth. And indeed, I believe that's true. We have a very strong connection to earth, to Gaia, but I'm getting men saying the same thing. And I can say that, you know, there's no reason why all animals, physical animals, men, plants, you know, are being affected by what's going on physically, emotionally, psychologically. So from day to day, not just changing timelines, but you yourself changing, morphing, and also having very anomalous happenings to yourself.
You know, I listened to that interview with him, Carrie, and I related to that portion. Well, I related to a lot of it, but that portion of it I related to, and that kind of stuck with me a little bit. And I think that can be that particular statement could have been expounded on. Of course, you know, I think there's 100 things he can expound on, and you've just got so much time. And I have to agree that women and a lot of men, and we have to be fair now. There is a lot of men that feel they're more emotionally connected to being human and that connection of life-giving and et cetera and so forth, many more than there used to be, in my opinion. I think it's, you know, it's done a lot of growing. Men have done a lot of growing through these millennia, and getting rid of that other side that was kind of programmed, so to speak, as how they were supposed to be. But back to the woman thing, I'm sure you probably have had this experience where aches and pains and then they just kind of go away and there's just no reason for it, but they can be pretty devastating. Some of the pain can be pretty devastating, and there's not a source or a cause for it. So I would tell people, and I have told them this through the years, and certainly on my shows, is if something is persistent and you do get a little concerned about it, then at that point I think then you might want to get, you know, seek some medical attention or some medical advice or what have you. But if these growing pains, I think that's actually what they could be, is like growing pains. We're growing into a new space, literally. Yeah. And you know, it can shake the body up and it can throw it off balance, and we have deposits of stuff that we're still carrying around in our physical bodies that we, you know, always need to cleanse and clear, you know, stuff that we carry with us. So, but yeah, I think that was is good information for people. I'd like to digress here just a little bit. Our producer gave me a question that had come in from the chat box, and it came in about 20 minutes ago, and I can't access the chat box, so I didn't see the question. I'd like just to take a moment and answer that. How many different races did I count? How many races were there? I didn't count them, but as I view it back, I can tell you there was at least 11 or 12 different species there.
Cool.
In that dream. Or, you know, I really hate calling them dreams, Carrie, because, you know, they're experiences, but they're night experiences, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it. So, yeah. So, okay. So, anyway, I wanted to answer that question. I didn't want to leave that unanswered for them. Is there any other questions that you can see, or?
Actually, yeah, that's what I was going to say, because I can see the YouTube chat. I don't know if our producer can, but anyway, I don't see any questions. Other than that question, I do see. If you have a question, could you put it in all caps, and then we can see it, you know, more quickly and distinguish it from just the random chat that's going on there. By the way, I'm going to be broadcasting with Mike Sparks, I just want to say, at 7 p.m. tonight on a YouTube, Google Hangout type of thing. We're still trying to figure out where the links are and how to post them, so I can't tell you where it's going to be right offhand, but I will try to put that out there for people, you know, so you can click over very easily and see the live show if you want. The good thing about live, as always, is that people can ask questions, and we would love to get more questions, even for today's show, because there are a lot of topics we can talk about. We could actually talk all night and all day.
And then some.
Because we enjoy talking, number one, and also because there's a lot to talk about. So, yeah, if you want us to focus on certain things, please do put in the chat, and either one of us will be happy to answer your questions. So, so I just wanted to say that, and then we'll kind of scan the chat, and we've got a producer on hand here who's helping us out. And, you know, I never say names of people that help me unless I know for sure they want to be famous, because otherwise they do get some maybe undue attention on them by virtue of working with Camelot. Just happens to be part of the scenario. But let me just say, because this is all about introducing the Camelot TV network. So that's what we're calling it, Project Camelot TV Network, I think is going to be the formal name. And this is, you know, what do you say, you know, the show at the Advent, the show, the Cutting Edge First show, it's really not being done in a very elegant manner, I guess. I know you can see my kitchen behind me.
Well, I did put something up behind me so that it was like, you know, I don't want everyone to see what's going on, man. I have to clean them.
Good point. Since I don't cook a hell of a lot. No, just kidding.
Like you have time for stuff like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I do a little, but it's not a lot. So consequently, I don't mind you seeing my kitchen. You don't want to see the rest. No, just kidding. But anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that we're doing this as a grassroots effort right now, and like I said, we have around 19 hosts, and I'd like to take some time here, if people are interested, to give the names of our hosts and maybe give a brief description, if I have one, of the person. And so, what do you think about that, Rebecca? And then you could like lead off, because you're our first hostess or whatever, and talk about what you plan for your show and different times when you're going to be broadcasting. And we're going to do this grassroots effort for the next 4 weeks. We brilliantly chose Mercury retrograde to do this during Mercury retrograde, right?
Right.
But you know, there may be some deeper reasons why this started during a retrograde. Nonetheless, what do you think about that? Hearing about the different hosts at this point.
I think that would be good, and I do. I think it would be really good. I think it would be wonderful to kind of give an idea of where everybody's going and what they're going to be doing.
And if there was a way to take my name off at this point from my it's really crazy. I think you start the Hangout one way, and there's just no way to change it once you started. So that's the issue we're having. So again, I'd love to, you know, even if I typed, you know, your name under that, that would help. But I don't think that that's going to work. I'm sort of saying that to my producer, kind of in case he can figure it out for us. In the meanwhile, with that in mind, do you mind describing your show and how you envision it for people?
Sure. Well, there's going to be a few different things that go on in the show. First of all, most of the time, not every time, but most of the time it's going to be guest-driven. In other words, I will have a guest on with me. And I cover the gamut of mostly the metaphysical field. I have a doctor coming on that is talking about cell regeneration. It's called Neurogenesis. He's going to be on the show. He's already scheduled. I have an astrologer that will be on twice a month in the daytime show. So let me go back, and I'm on Tuesdays. Normally it'll be 2 to 3 p.m. in that Central Time, 2 to 3 p.m. Central Time. And then Wednesday evenings from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time is the show. So on the Tuesdays show, She will be on with an astrological kind of overview and forecast of what's coming up, what's happened. Now, she will be on, I think, next week. I'd have to look at the calendar. I think she's going to be on next week. Let me look. No, she will be on the 29th. And what she will be covering on the 29th is the eclipses and what that means and how those energetics affect us in the immediacy, and also what's the long-range effects for them. We will also be adding to that show, after her initial visit to the show, we'll be adding an email where people can email me with their date and place of birth and time and one question, and we will be answering some of those questions on air, little mini readings, and they are very mini, on air on those Tuesday shows. I have another gentleman that's going to be coming on, and he's specifically geared for the UFO community, but he has a different take on it. It's quite interesting. I have another guest coming on that will be talking about mind control and what it is and isn't, and there's actually a co-author there, and then I've got a few more that are in the works, talking about the bloodlines of the gods. I have some people coming on with some archaeological updates and some new symbology and what that could represent. So it runs the gamut of the metaphysics, physicality for sure, but also metaphysical in nature. I have a couple of other people that will be coming on. Another gentleman that I've actually had on the show a few years back, who has taken Tesla's technology and turned it into healing devices, and he just came out with patents on it, and he will be on the show in September, and so he'll be talking about those. So a little bit of everything, Carrie, is where my show is at this point, as it has always been. It doesn't fit like a single genre, because life is way more extensive than just, one or two arenas, as you well know. I mean, you're involved in all kinds of, different situations, and that's the way my guests will be. And then I'll be doing some shows, by myself, where I'll be doing commentaries, and those will probably be during the Tuesday time slots, because the Wednesday evenings, it seems like that everybody wanted those, so which is pretty normal.
Absolutely. Well, we thank you for that. We have a changing sort of roster. I think that's the way you'd say. So we have a changing roster of hosts that are, because this is experimental, needless to say, some people opted to do it and then have backed out because they found out, I'm not going to name a name, some people found out they have lawsuits pending, and their lawyer has told them, wait a minute, that won't be a good idea. You won't win your lawsuit if you're on this very controversial network talking about all kinds of things. So, they had to back out. Then we had other people who thought it was a great idea but had family issues come along or things like that. So we're morphing as I speak, and but I will go down a quick sort of roster of who's who and what we've got coming up. So and again, I may leave someone out inadvertently, and then you'll see them on the schedule. And by the way, I have eventually we're crowdfunding for this, okay? So we are going to crowdfund to hire people like our lovely producer who's standing by behind the scenes here. And there's two of them, and they are going to be helping to broadcast us in a more formal manner as time goes on. And they aren't going to be paid during these 4 weeks because we have no money to pay them with. But we're going to crowdfund sometime beginning in the next month after Mercury goes direct, and we are going to raise funds to run this network like a real business, like a startup, as a matter of fact. So it's a new entity. There's Project Camelot and there's Project Camelot TV Network. So two distinct entities, but they're both going to be found on my YouTube channel, which is so it makes life easier. You can find the shows from both places. But what I'm saying here is that with all these hosts coming on board, we do need a team to actually build websites, to secure our shows, etc., in terms of content and so on, just to run any business, to advertising, publicity, you name it. Camelot has never been run that way, obviously. We've always been run by just me and my webmaster, whoever that is, except in the early days when Bill Ryan was my partner, then it was me, Bill Ryan, and our webmaster. So we've had volunteers come and go throughout the time, which has been lovely to have the help of sort of unseen hands. And sometimes people behind the scenes are still helping out. And so with this network launch today, we do have, as I say, a couple producers behind the scenes. We've got, I've got a young webmaster who is building the Project Camelot TV Network.com website, and there's actually a beta site out there on that URL. It's not ready to go really yet, but eventually it'll have all the hosts, pages for the host shows, so you'll get a description of the host, and you'll be able to see where the archive shows are, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot to be done to launch something like this when it's not more than just me, obviously, broadcasting using the Camelot brand. But we've established over the years a huge following and a very solid YouTube subscriber list as well. And because of that, we want to share that with all of these amazing hosts, because getting the truth out and working together is really what it's all about now. We need to do that. Us in the alternative sector is what I'm saying. There's been it's been very difficult for the alternative sector to kind of get together and try to broadcast together and try to do anything, especially using video. Radio shows, of course, radio has been to some degree, you know, out there broadcasting on the internet and doing it kind of in groups and as individuals, et cetera, et cetera. Now there's so many radio shows you can't even count them. But so that's kind of an introduction to what's going on here. Now, the hosts that we have so far, let me just say, are, of course, Rebecca Jernigan. We've got Marcia Schaefer, who is Bob Dean's wife, and has written books herself, and I'm trying to think of the one book that, at any rate, she's on our website. And a lot of the, let me just say that a lot of the TV hosts that we're going to have are people that have over the years been interviewed by Project Camelot, and they are researchers, they are whistleblowers, and they are often contactees, and sometimes they're all three, right, in one person. And those are the people that we offered shows to. So this is very exciting. And then on top of it, we have people that are old hands, what I call old hands, as radio show hosts, which Rebecca Jernigan is certainly one. And Sean David Morton has been offered a show on this network, and someday may join us, all things being even or whatever. And but at this time, what I'm saying is this is what the composition of the hosts are. So you've got people like Susan Lindauer, for example, who's not able to join us right now due to some logistical issues she's having, but will be joining us hopefully in the future. And she is a whistleblower, a 9/11 whistleblower, in case you don't recognize her name. And so we're very excited to have her join us. We've got knowns and we've got unknowns, and each side of that equation are reasons to tune in and listen, because let me tell you that it has been a dynamic with Camelot that anyone that I interview ends up becoming known. It just, I don't know, it's very weird. They end up having a sort of a life and career that goes far beyond my interview with them, and they get picked up, is what I'm saying, by other journalists, by other, you know, broadcast platforms, et cetera, interviewed over and over again all over the web, and that's really generates quite a sort of name for themselves. So the same may happen here, as we can assume, but let me go down the list of names. So we got Marcia Schaefer. She's going to do an occasional show, and she's a fascinating person who is a contactee and has written about that. She works with executives primarily, so we're going to be very excited to have her on board. She is interviewed on Camelot, I think, at least twice, and maybe more than that. So any of these names, you can go to my front page of the Camelot website right now and do a search under the name and usually find their interviews, by the way. And then there is Offer, and Offer is, well, she's a fascinating woman who is also a contactee and a channeler, someone like Rebecca who is in contact with a certain group and is channeling information out of that group. And on top of it, she's an accomplished web designer and sort of person on the internet. She has also been something of an investigative journalist. She's a real researcher, and she's going to have her own show. We've got Thomas Hawksblood, who is a well-known radio talk show host at this point, has been on other networks. He's going to come on sometime this week. I'm not sure if it's today, but sometime this week to do a show, and will be joining us. And Tommy Hawksblood is very well known in the UFO community. He's been an experiencer, a very well-known researcher, and as I say, a radio talk show host in the past. So he's coming on board to do a show, and he's very astute, let me say, and I think he's quite psychic in his own right. So he will be a lot of fun to listen to, and he's always got new stuff going on. I think it's okay to say he's based in the Hawaiian Islands area, and so he also reports things going on from that sector. And let me say that is a very active sector in terms of ET visitation. There is a base there that I'm aware of and have had a dream about, and so on. So stay tuned for Tommy Hawksblood when he does his shows. Valery Uvarov, which is wild, but I interviewed this man. He works or worked for what in essence used to be called the KGB, and I forget what they're called now. It's the Russian Secret Service or whatever you want to call it. The government, the UFO desk for the government. He was interviewed by Camelot when we went to Russia to interview Boriska. So that's how many years that goes back. And Valery Uvarov is in himself a very astute researcher into anomalous happenings, into UFOs, et cetera, et cetera. He is, what else? He investigated the pyramids. He's something of an expert on the pyramids, and not just the pyramids, well, in Egypt, but in Russia, the ones they built there for healing purposes. He's also an investigator into the Tunguska event. Valery Uvarov is a fascinating guy. I believe, all things being equal, he's traveling right now, so this is sort of speculative, but he has agreed to do a show, at least one show with me and maybe more. So that's going to be very exciting. Let's see, who else do we have here? We have Brian Forrester. Brian Forrester is a researcher that many people will know. He leads tours all the time, Peru, in South America, and around the world, as a matter of fact. He's a highly regarded Indiana Jones type of persona. He has written, I read recently, something like 11 books. I find that amazing. But he is an expert on the longheads, what we know of as the real skulls left behind by the Anunnaki who were here, called the long skulls. And he actually handles a museum in Peru that he manages that deals with the long skulls. So that's Brian Forrester. He, I believe, is traveling again right now, but he will be doing a show for us, and I'm looking very much forward to that. He is often taking tours out there, so that's going to be really exciting. Then we've got Maxine Taylor, and Maxine Taylor is a fascinating astrologer and a person who I believe she considers herself a walk-in, if I have that correct, and something of a specialist in terms of that experience for herself and others. And she's also something of a counselor. She is an old hand at broadcasting. She, in fact, had an astrology show. I think, I may be wrong, it was on a network. I don't know which network, let me say that, but it was a mainstream astrology show at one point. And so Maxine, I've had her on my show a number of times, Maxine Taylor. She will be doing a show with us sometime, maybe this week even, starting this week. And I'm very happy to have her on board. She also analyzes what's coming up in terms of the astrology. So she will look at things like presidential elections. She's accurately predicted the various winners of elections and so on, using her astrological method. So she's a lot of fun. She's a very upbeat person and by nature, and she's we've done shows. I've been on her show as well. She's been doing radio for a long time and some video recently. So we're excited to have her on board. We've got Mark Gray. He is a French ufologist, and I met him when I was in France, and that's kind of how we got connected, as I recall. And he has been holding like these French UFO kind of conferences, small seminars, and he's been broadcasting doing that. He's had me as a guest and other very well-known people. He's a journalist, investigator, and so it'll be fascinating to have someone in France broadcasting for us. We want to be worldwide, and we in fact have people on this network already from around the world. So it's very exciting to have that. So that's Mark Gray, and that way we will be tapping into the French side of the UFO situation, to anomalous events in France and around the world. And Mark, as I say, is an astute investigator and journalist. So, and I believe he's also a contactee, and I'm not sure how much he talks about that, but I think he might be willing to. So he'll be doing a show. Joanne Richards. Joanne is a charming, brilliant wife of Captain Mark Richards, the Secret Space Program captain that I've interviewed now 3 times, and we'll be going back for a 4th interview in the near future. I'm happy to say, having recovered from my weird face thing that happened to me when I was on the way to interview him back in April. And it's not completely recovered, but it's almost there, as you can tell. So I will be having Joanne Richards. She's going to do a show on our network, and she will be, let's say, she sees her husband in prison. He's in prison in Vacaville. She sees him, I believe, pretty much weekly or as often as she can. And so she, in a sense, will be, you could say loosely, channeling Mark Richards' stuff through her to do as part of her show. And she's a speaker on the circuit and has been publishing his writings, doing her own writing. I think she was a journalist initially in her career many years ago. So that comes in handy for her. But she is really on the cutting edge with regard to his material, and his material is, well, there's volumes of it. So she's actually going to be speaking in England in October at the same place I just got back from, which is Watford, in Watford, where the High Elms Manor is in England. I did a wonderful event there just recently. Thanks, guys, for showing up. 2 years, second year in the row, and I'm going back. Apparently, I've been invited now for next year. That's a excellent venue, and we have a lot of fun out there. And so Joanne's going to be out there in October, as I said. So that's lovely for her. She'll be visiting some raptors in England and so on. No, just kidding. Kind of kidding. So see that for what it's worth. And by the way, I'm about to publish a letter from Mark that I just got. He actually sent it in August, but I was traveling during the month of August. As you may know, I went to Turkey. I went to Göbekli Tepe, and I wrote some articles about that. We're hoping to get a mini documentary out there about my trip soon. And let me see what else. I was in England, as I say, speaking at this event, and so that's Joanne Richards. So we're really happy and pleased to have her on board to do a show, and she will be joining us sometime in the next 4 weeks. Michael Henry Dunn. He is a What do you say? Well, I guess he's a writer. He's certainly a writer, and he's also something of an expert in certain areas of yoga, meditation, and that sort of thing. He holds events in the LA area, from what I understand, doing that. He's also, well, he's an expert on Shakespeare, which is the way I first came across him. But since then, he got involved with Neil Keenan for a while. He was involved in trying to help get the word out in some of the Keenan stuff. Very controversial subject, I must say. And then he was also, more recently, he's been involved with Prince, Judge Matthew, who is another controversial character. And Michael Henry Dunn is involved with their, they have a court that is like a court for humanity that they've been creating. And so he's going to be advocating that, but he's also going to be doing a show with guests and interviewing people. And he's a charming, very, very intelligent, astute individual. So that's going to be a lot of fun to see what he's up to and to follow his sort of explorations in those areas. Certainly a lot to do with a people's justice movement. I guess that might be a good title. Going down this list, Miles Johnston. Well, Miles Johnston is fascinating and a broadcaster really from even the BBC, I believe, in England originally. He was involved with pirate radio. Miles has a very wide, long reputation. He's doing a lot of great work in what he calls the BASES conference and the BASES UK effort. And I just posted some of his recent work on the front page of Camelot, so I encourage you to go there to see a filming he did, in fact, of a man named Peter Paget, who is a British government-sponsored, in a certain sense, high-level UFO investigator, writer of books, but also a member of sort of British high society, I think you might say, loosely, and someone who's worked with the government as well on a consultant basis, at least, and I don't know if, I guess maybe officially also probably been a member of certain agencies over there. At any rate, he's done a new disclosure that's available on my website. It's, again, Miles Johnston was called up to go down and film him in Warminster in the UK, and so it's actually a film of a talk that Peter Paget gave. It's Miles Johnston that made it possible for us to see that talk, and in that talk, Peter Paget is releasing some good information. A lot of it is very well known to Camelot viewers. But it's interesting because it's in the sort of disclosure realm of a major, country, an Illuminati-run country that's actually disclosing some real information for a change. So I have to say that's fascinating. I'm offering Peter Paget an interview, by the way. But to get back to the subject, Miles Johnston will hopefully somehow, some way, do shows for us, and we're trying to negotiate and figure out with him how that can be possible, because at the moment, from what I understand, he's having some logistical issues, but we're really hoping to bring him on board and make that possible. Let me see, who else do I have here? I've got a woman who is named Jacqueline, who is going to be sending us shows from Hong Kong. And if we can broadcast her live, we will. They will be in Mandarin for a Mandarin-speaking audience, I believe. And I hope I have that right. At any rate, it will be for mainly the Chinese audience, Chinese-speaking audience. But eventually, she will also do English shows because she speaks English fine. She was one of my guides and interpreters when I was speaking in Hong Kong recently, and she's an absolutely delightful animal activist, and she has all kinds of information. She's really on the case in terms of how animals are being treated around the globe. So that's an important show. It's exciting to have someone in Hong Kong who can broadcast to us, can send us shows and put this on the network. So we're very excited about having Jacqueline on board. Scott Bennett is a whistleblower, and he is a person who is been interviewed by me, and he's really out interviewing on the circuit as well. He's going to do a show that should be absolutely fascinating, because we're going to have this whistleblower who's talking about the funding of ISIS by Swiss banks and the CIA, etc., who has intelligence background, who has been an Army officer, and so on, doing a show for us. So that's lovely and exciting, and I'm going to be tuning in with all ears to hear whatever Scott's talking about on any given day. So that's going to be wonderful, and this is just the power of running our own network instead of sitting by and letting other people do all this kind of thing, because Camelot is all about whistleblowers, yeah? And so the more whistleblowers we can encourage to come on board to do shows on a weekly basis, daily basis, whatever they want, monthly, speaking for themselves, telling you what's going on. Certain unnamed whistleblowers have been invited to do so. So far, a few of them have not accepted my invitation. But let me say that it's exciting to be able to offer that, all right? Okay, moving down the list here, we've got Bridget Dolgorf, and actually, she's going to do a show on sort of a spiritual economics show, if I understand it correctly, and she'd probably kill me because I don't have the description of what her exact show is going to be about, but she kind of contacted me out of the blue, and she's a good friend of Richard Allen Miller, and I just took her sight unseen. And this is, again, the power of doing something grassroots, that you can just throw it at the wall and just see what sticks, and take our chances on hosts and fascinating people from around the world, and give them a chance. So we're giving Bridget a chance, and I'm expecting great things, and so that will be very interesting. So economics is the topic of her discussions. Let me say that Paladin, the White Hat, who is, by the way, one of my partners in this Camelot TV network effort. I've got him as a partner, and I've got also an unseen partner who is kind of going to connect us with investors as time goes on, perhaps. But he's consulting us on a business standpoint to make this a viable network that actually allows us to pay our hosts, pay people to work for us, actually, pay for advertising, do all kinds of things that normal, I guess, mainstream companies actually are able to do. This will be an alternative company that we try to actually get out there, so that we're not always preaching to the choir and the people that are already on the base with us, but also be able to branch out to more people out there, because it's really at a time on the planet when we need to as many hands on deck as possible. So that's what the motivation is for getting more sort of moving in the direction. I won't say we'll be mainstream, because they would never let us in their club, but and that's
I don't want to be in their club.
Yeah, there you go. But Paladin will be, the White Hat, is going to do a show for us. Now, when that show will actually debut, I don't know. But he's an expert. He's a forensic financial investigator. And he has had some FBI training, I think is how he puts it. And he is certainly well known as publishing the White Hat reports that I've had him on my show. I've interviewed him. He's done some shows. He did a show for us on Bitcoin, for example. So a lot of people will know him. He writes a blog for me on Camelot, Paladin's blog, in case you're not familiar. And he's always on the job in terms of the economic system and what's going on, and the downturn in the economy, and the new system coming in. So stay tuned for that, because Paladin will be a fascinating person to listen to. And he already has a voice made for radio, television, whatever it is. So how that happened, I don't know, but it's just a fact of the matter. So that'll be a great show. Let me see if I've left anyone out. That's it for now. I think I may have left someone out, but I'm trying to skim here. At any rate, Rebecca, do you have any reaction? Do you want to say anything? You've seen some questions you think we should cover?
Well, first of all, I want to say that the lineup that's here is wide and varied, and it's going to get just even more wide and varied as people come on board. Um, you know, when you started this process, maybe not everyone was in a position to be able to commit to whatever it took in order to do this. So I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see a lot of growth here, and certainly a lot of really good shows and information that's going to come out of it. So I'm excited to be on board, and truly just kind of feel pretty honored to be the first show out. And I didn't have anything planned. Everything was off the cuff. Because I didn't really know what we were doing. We were just going to do it. We were just going to share information, and whatever came out is what came out. So I'm good with it. And I think as people go along, they'll find them, although they may be somewhat informal, they'll be more structured than obviously this one has been. We've been on the seat of our pants or by the coattails or whatever you want to call it, and it's all good, man. I love it. There was a couple questions that came in. I don't know if you want to answer them or not. Somebody was
asking about Egypt when we went there. Do you want to talk about that? Because people always ask that question. That's kind of funny. Whenever we're together, they always want to know what happened in Egypt.
Well, Egypt was quite an interesting time. I think you probably knew that as well. I mean, you feel that as well. I think what was most fascinating for me to experience while I was there was the fact that never having been to Egypt before, never having stepped foot over there whatsoever, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. And I was told when I went over there by my guides, don't expect anything. Keep an open mind and just go, and you will have the information that you need. So, I did. I was a blank slate when I went over there, and then the vision started at night. Every night we'd go to sleep. I'd have a vision about something that took place, or the place that we were going to visit in the next day or two. And so you being, you and I sitting there having our morning coffee, I would share these visions with you, and I think they were still to this day they're very extraordinary. And I think the most interesting thing was the one that I was telling you about, which was the tunnels that I seen underneath, and that we were down there. And then now mainstream has come out with the tunnels that are now underneath the Sphinx and some of the other areas that hadn't been forthcoming before. So I think the whole experience there was pretty eye-opening for me, because I think the most unusual one was the one where I walked down those steps, and it was the Flower of Life. You remember that? And I said, oh my God, I've been on these steps before. I said, this was like what I was dreaming about. There's no rail. It's just all open, and it goes down. So I was thinking about that the other day, the place that's still flooded.
Oh, yeah?
Remember that, where the Flower of Life was?
Oh, yes. Oh, well, that's Abydos.
Yeah, Abydos. So I'm thinking to myself, so we're in the middle of a desert, and yet we have standing water after, I don't know, however many thousands of years now, or hundreds anyway. I wonder why that is. And all the other places we went to did not have standing water in them.
Right.
So it was by design. They didn't want people in there. Now, I don't know if I shared this with you at the time, but years and years and years ago, I had a vision dream in which I was inside of a structure. Felt like it might have been like a pyramid. I don't know for sure if it was. I mean, I've slept since then. It's been a few. I mean, I was pretty young when I had this one. And it was partially underwater, and we had to have special gear. And when we went underwater, I was there with some other people, and we went underwater. The structure went on forever, and it went down and down, and there was gold, and there was artifacts and things like that. Things I didn't understand what it was I was looking at that time. So it kind of makes me wonder when I was thinking about that and these other things that's come up from the past if that somehow tied in there. But just saying. So for me, the whole trip was, and of course it was a pretty magnanimous time. It was 2012. You know, the whole Mayan calendar thing was blowing up on people. You know, about everything and what it really meant. And we had some pretty strange political and military activity there, if you want to call it, or
That's
police
right.
activity that kept people away, and all of a sudden people were turned away, and you know what was really going on. We all got a sense of that, and then I had that vision of you know what we were all doing. It was pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, and I had visions as well. Simultaneously, we're having something of the same vision as it happened, as I recall, on the same day in which there was a battle taking place within the pyramid
Right.
on one of those key days, which around the 21st of 2012, as I recall.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, beings also, there were beings seen, a lot of beings around the pyramids and inside the pyramids. And I, at a certain point, I also had a vision of, let me see, well, the ibis, which is in essence Thoth, or however you want to say that, Thoth, Thoth, whatever.
Right.
I actually did see Thoth in the top, above, you know, in the capstone, the very top part of the pyramid, with some tablets in his hands, and seemed to be aware of me, being aware of him. That was very interesting. And a lot of us had all kinds of amazing psychic things going on. We had beings accompanying us, light beings accompanying us that were seen in the various sites as we went around Egypt. The group was seeing all kinds of anomalous things. We were taking photographs, and the light beings would show up in the photographs.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah.
And things like that. So it was. We had meditations that we did. For example, we did a special sort of Sekhmet meditation within that temple that's near, that's at Luxor. There's a small Sekhmet temple dedicated to the lion god, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, fascinating time, and unforgettable, really, I have to say, that time. And I actually wanted to take another group to Egypt. In fact,
I'd love to go.
I was kicking around the idea of doing that. I know this sounds completely wild and crazy, and even now as I say it, it does, but even this November. But I don't know if I can get it together that quickly. I don't know. I got a message. I get these weird messages saying I have to go to a certain area of the world.
Yep.
And that's how I ended up in Turkey recently. And I had no idea I was going there, and I had no idea that I would ever even make it to Göbekli Tepe. I thought that was going to be too expensive, and I didn't think we could swing it. We had no planning in advance. It was the wildest, craziest thing. As it happened, of course, ISIS bombed a temple not like less than 5 hours from there, going south into Syria, right like the day after we left. So not a terribly safe area, they say, of the world at the moment in that area, but was fine when we were there, and was very exciting because we went inside this, well, not only Göbekli Tepe itself, which is fascinating and amazing, and you must see my articles if you haven't already on Project Camelot about that. Just do a search under Göbekli Tepe. But on top of it, I did an interview with ufologist Farah Uduzu, and I'm probably not saying her name right as usual, but fascinating woman who's very aware of the reptilian influence on the temples in the Middle East, and specifically in Turkey. And we also, when we were down by Göbekli Tepe, besides going to this amazing new museum that they just built, which is absolutely structurally gorgeous building, just physically. Beautiful, beautiful building. And so kudos to the architects on that one. And we were the only ones in the entire museum because
wow.
all the Westerners were supposed to be the only tourists in the whole area at the time because everyone was scared away by what's going on in Syria.
Yeah.
It was fascinating, and we took lots of photographs, so some of those we published so far, and we again hope to get out there in the near future. But let me say that we also went to a square that was part of a real marketplace that has probably been the same for the last millennia, in which the people are all doing crafts right in their little stalls where they sell their market wares, etc. And so we meandered all through that, and then we were looked at like we were, I don't know, aliens from another planet. Interesting and fine. And then we ended up in this square where all the men play games and eat. And we had a lovely meal there, which was really very fun and I love the food. I adore the food in Turkey. Let me say, a lot of non-GMO fruits and vegetables, that kind of thing. Lovely. I mean, the food just everywhere is just amazing. In fact, I miss it now that I'm back in LA.
I hear you.
But that's life. So so I mean, traveling is exciting when it can be possible. It can be quite expensive. We try to travel as sort of reasonably as we can, but it has been a vital part of my research, and bringing in that into the ancient sites, the energetics that relate to Kundalini ascension, and also to do with the progress of humanity through the ages, and the history that's the untold history there.
Right.
Things that Brian Forrester talks about, Hugh Newman, if you're familiar with Hugh, who I've been interviewed a number of times, and other researchers doing wonderful work in that area. I am not an archaeologist, obviously, but I kind of bring what you might say, not only a female, but a more spiritual point of view when I investigate these places, and I tap into the energetics because I feel energy. So in my hands.
Right.
So, that's really a very valuable thing for me to be able to do, and some Camelot viewers made that trip possible out of the blue, out of nowhere, just gave me money that made it possible to do that trip. So I think we're close to being way over time.
Yeah, we went way over the hour. It's not a deal, though. I mean, I think it was necessary for us. We, first of all, I think people got to hear a little bit more from you, and certainly where the Project Camelot TV is going, and and I'm glad that I was able to share some of the information about me. Obviously, I am just pleased as punch to be here. I really am, and looking forward to a lot more experiences and love to share them. And I know you will be back on my show at some point. You will be on for sure.
Well, we used to do this on radio. We used to get together every now and again and just sort of shoot the breeze and go all over the place. So it's kind of fun to do that again with you, Rebecca.
It is. And be able to see each other, too. That's even cooler.
That's a new segment, new part of that sort of dynamic. But anyway, I want to thank our producers for making this possible logistically and helping us out and behind the scenes. And like I said, I'll be back on the screen tonight at 7 p.m. and interviewing Mike Sparks, who is a ex-Army officer who specializes in James Bond, and bringing to the fore what James Bond Ian Fleming was really all about, the secrets he was trying to reveal to the world, and linking that up, in this case, with what he calls the right stuff, or in essence, the space program.
Right.
Both NASA and the secret space program. So we're going to be going down that road tonight at 7 p.m., so please do join us. Rebecca, any parting words do you want to...
Well, I just want to say, first of all, welcome aboard to everybody that was able to come in and listen today, and just please know that we will this will be much smoother in the future. We hope anyway. I'm pretty sure we'll get there. And I want to take the opportunity again to thank all the producers and everybody that was behind it, and certainly the other co-hosts that I was involved with as far as the training, and we were all, pretty helpful with each other and pretty understanding. And so I'm very happy to be on board with such a really wonderful group of people that kind of have the same idea about sharing knowledge and information and whatever we can do to assist and help. So I'm looking forward to being here, and I'm looking forward to the guests and sharing information, and I look forward to the questions from the audience. And I appreciate you being here with me today, Carrie, and us being able to sit here and just kind of share all this wonderful and valuable information for people so they have a place to go, a new place, a new hangout, Google Hangouts, a new place to go, and with some unique people. I really think that we're all pretty unique here, so that's
no doubt about it. We've got some wonderful shows scheduled for you and some wonderful hosts that we're bringing to you. And this show, now that we're going to wrap up, will be uploaded shortly to my YouTube channel, the Jag Bodie Project Camelot YouTube channel. And so people who only came in late and didn't see much of it will be able to see the whole thing. And that will be true of every broadcast that we do that eventually gets uploaded to my Camelot YouTube channel. So that's a good thing in case you missed anything. As far as being able to answer all the questions, I'm so sorry that we haven't got the time at this juncture to answer all the wonderful questions coming in here at the sort of ending juncture of what we're doing.
It always happens that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. It always happens that way. And I wanted to leave off, too, with letting people know I will be back tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. You'll be back tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific. I will be back at 7 p.m. tomorrow night, Central Time, and then I will be back again next Tuesday. So I'm looking forward to that. And if anybody wants any additional information as far as times and schedules and guests, they can also find that on my website at journeyswithrebecca.com.
Oh, and excellent. And I also want to say that this new website and also on Project Camelot, we will post the schedule for upcoming shows as soon as we get that together. So with us, the schedule has been morphing, and we will put it on this new network URL, which is, again, going to be Project Camelot TV Network. And so projectcamelottvnetwork.com. That's the URL for specifically taking you to the TV network website that we're building to go along with all the hosts, et cetera, et cetera. It will be linked eventually on the front page of Camelot, so no worries there. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And thank you for joining us on our first debut show here. And thank you, Rebecca, for hosting our first show and making this a very fascinating transition to be part of, really.
Well, thank you, and I wish all of you good luck, and good luck on your show tonight, Carrie. Good night, everyone. Good day, I guess I should say, everyone.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.